First contact fallout. The Galactic Concordiat had existed for over 40,000 years, uniting thousands of species across 17 spiral arms of the Milky Way. Their technological prowess had allowed them to observe countless developing worlds, categorizing them based on potential threat levels and technological advancement rates. Earth had always been classified as a Category 4 planet, technologically stunted due to excessive internal conflict, projected to self-annihilate before achieving interstellar capabilities. Commander Celeris Vex, chief xenoanthropologist of the Concordiat Observation Fleet, had personally authorized the downgrading of Earth's observation priority 3 centuries earlier. The decision had seemed logical at the time. Humans spent so much energy fighting among themselves that their technological progress was deemed negligible compared to other emerging species. That decision now haunted her as she stood before the Grand Conclave, the governing body of the Concordiat, attempting to explain how humanity had suddenly appeared at the borders of Concordiat space with a fleet of ships utilizing technology that, by all accounts, should have been impossible for them to develop. "Explain again," demanded High Counselor Zurax, his crystalline form shifting colors to indicate extreme displeasure, how a species that your department classified as self-terminating has suddenly appeared with propulsion technology that rivals our own. Celeris's 4 arms tightened against her torso, a gesture of discomfort among her people. The humans appear to have unified approximately 80 years ago, following what they term the Last War. Rather than destroying themselves as predicted, they channeled their competitive nature into technological development. And no one thought to reassess their classification, hissed Counselor Mebari, her serpentine body coiling tightly in agitation. Our observation protocols require check-ins every 5 centuries for Category 4 worlds, Celeris replied. We were not due for reassessment for another 200 years. The chamber erupted in angry vocalizations from dozens of species. The implications were severe. A completely unknown technological power had emerged without warning. The Concordiat prided itself on maintaining galactic stability through careful monitoring and occasional intervention. Humanity represented a massive intelligence failure. What do they want? Zurax finally asked when the chamber quieted. They request diplomatic recognition and trade agreements, Celeris answered. Their ambassador awaits your permission to address this assembly. After heated deliberation, the human ambassador was permitted entry. Captain Amara Chen walked confidently into the grand chamber, seemingly unfazed by the hundreds of alien forms watching her. At just under 2 meters tall, with dark hair pulled back in a utilitarian style, and wearing a simple blue uniform adorned only with a silver insignia of Earth, she appeared strikingly plain compared to the ornate biological and technological diversity surrounding her. Distinguished representatives of the Concordiat, she began without preamble. Humanity extends greetings and seeks peaceful integration into the galactic community. Your sudden appearance concerns us, human, Zurax responded. Your kind was not expected to achieve interstellar travel for at least another millennium. Captain Chen smiled slightly. Yes, we've been aware of your observation posts since we detected them in our outer solar system 300 years ago. We've also intercepted enough of your communications to understand your classification system. Category 4, I believe. Self-terminating due to internal conflict. A ripple of discomfort passed through the assembly. Humans weren't supposed to know about the observation protocols. We chose not to reveal our awareness. Chen continued, nor our accelerated progress. The technological leap you're wondering about came from what we call desperation innovation. Our greatest advances have always come when our survival was threatened. You speak as though your deception was justified. Counselor Mebari interjected. With respect, Counselor, your Concordiat has a documented history of restricting technological development in species deemed unpredictable. We preferred to develop independently rather than under constraints. The accusation was not unfounded. The Concordiat did indeed implement what they called guided development for volatile species. What guarantees can you offer that humanity will not destabilize established galactic order? asked Zurax. None whatsoever, Chen replied candidly. Just as you can offer no guarantees that the Concordiate would treat us as equals rather than subordinates, that's why we propose a probationary period. 5 standard years during which we establish cultural and scientific exchanges before making permanent agreements. The proposal was reasonable, but many counselors remained deeply suspicious of the humans' intentions and capabilities. Humanity's integration into galactic society proceeded cautiously over the following months. Trade agreements were limited, cultural exchanges carefully monitored. Humans were granted access to the most peripheral trading stations, but core worlds remained off-limits. Captain Chen had been replaced by a full diplomatic corps led by Ambassador Tariq Okafor, who patiently endured the barely concealed contempt of many Concordiate officials. The prevailing attitude among the established species was that humans were upstarts who had somehow stumbled upon advanced technology without earning it through the proper evolutionary and social development stages. This prejudice became exceedingly clear during the technology assessment conferences, where human innovations were systematically dismantled, criticized, and occasionally appropriated without credit. Particularly galling to the Concordiate scientists was the human approach to faster-than-light travel, which utilized principles previously dismissed as theoretically unworkable. Your quantum folding drive shouldn't function, insisted Kalat Vorn, the Concordiate's leading propulsion theorist, during one particularly heated exchange. You've essentially ignored 3 fundamental laws of transdimensional physics. We didn't ignore them, replied Dr. Sophia Rice, Earth's quantum propulsion specialist. We just approached them differently. Your models assume a uniformity in quantum fields that our research doesn't support. 8,000 years of Concordiate science supports our models, Kalat retorted dismissively. Dr. Rice simply shrugged. And yet our ships fly. This pattern repeated across multiple fields, Concordiate experts dismissing human approaches as crude, impossible, or dangerous, while humans quietly continued refining their technologies without seeking validation. The tensions might have continued indefinitely had disaster not intervened. 6 months into the probationary period, emergency signals blared across all communication channels as the Novari Collective, a species from a neighboring galaxy known for their expansionist policies, launched a surprise attack on Outpost Epsilon, a scientific research station housing thousands of Concordiate scientists and their families. The Concordiate defense fleet was scattered across various sectors, conducting routine patrols and escort missions. The nearest significant force was 3 days away at maximum speed. Outpost Epsilon would not survive that long. The only military vessels within range were a small human expeditionary force conducting approved exploratory missions in a nearby system. Ambassador Okafor received the distress call simultaneously with Concordiate command. This is a Concordiate military matter. High Commander Vrel informed Okafor firmly through the emergency channel. Your vessels are to maintain position and await instructions. Ambassador Okafor's response was transmitted throughout the Concordiate command network. With respect, High Commander, we are already moving to intercept. Our calculations show the outpost will be overrun within 12 hours. Your nearest forces cannot arrive in time. You have not been authorized to engage. Vrel's voice rose with indignation. Human interference could escalate. People are dying. Okafor cut in. Authorization becomes irrelevant when lives are at stake. First Fleet, engage at will. The 4 human vessels, modest in size compared to Concordiate capital ships, accelerated toward the besieged outpost at speeds that caused Concordiate tracking systems to issue multiple error warnings. The humans had apparently been significantly understating their propulsion capabilities. Concordiate observers watched with a mixture of horror and fascination as the human ships engaged the numerically superior Novari forces. They expected a swift and total loss of the human vessels. Instead, they witnessed something unprecedented. Rather than engaging in conventional space combat tactics, the human ships executed maneuvers that seemed to defy the laws of physics, appearing to phase partially in and out of normal space, making them nearly impossible to target. Their weapons fired not at the Novari ships themselves, but at seemingly empty regions of space around them, creating cascading disruptions in the fabric of reality that disabled rather than destroyed their targets. Within 3 hours, the human fleet had neutralized the Novari attack force without destroying a single vessel, capturing all 17 ships and their crews intact. The outpost, while damaged, had suffered minimal casualties thanks to the rapid intervention. When Concordiate forces finally arrived, they found the human ships conducting repairs on the outpost, while the captured Novari vessels were being systematically studied by human technicians. High Commander Vrel personally came aboard the human flagship to meet with Captain Lyon Taylor, who had coordinated the defense. "Your intervention was not authorized." Vrel began stiffly, his exoskeletal plates clicking with irritation. "Would you have preferred we let your people die?" Taylor asked simply. "The tactics you employed, they are unknown to us." Vrel continued, choosing to sidestep the question. "The Novari have raided our borders for centuries. Their shielding technology has always made capture impossible. How did you disable their systems without destruction?" Captain Taylor smiled slightly. "We noticed a pattern in their shield harmonics that suggested a vulnerability to targeted dimensional disruption. It was a theory we tested in real time. You tested an unproven weapon in actual combat." "We adapted to the situation with the tools available," Taylor replied. "It's something humans have always excelled at." News of the human intervention spread rapidly throughout Concordiate space, challenging the prevailing narrative about the primitive upstarts from Earth. Councillor Zirax called an emergency session of the Grand Conclave, where the footage of the battle was reviewed repeatedly. "They moved faster than our best vessels," one councillor observed. "And their weapons technology, it's like nothing in our archives," added another. Celeris Vex, still enduring the shame of her earlier classification error, studied the footage with professional interest. "Look at how they coordinate," she noted. "Each ship acts independently, but as part of a coherent whole. No central command structure, yet perfect synchronization." "Are they a threat to us?" Zirax asked bluntly. Celeris considered carefully before answering. "They could be, but I don't believe that's their intention. They've shown remarkable restraint given the condescension they've endured from us." "Then what do they want?" Mevari demanded. "Based on my observations, respect," Celeris replied. "They want to be acknowledged as equals, not tolerated as inferiors." The conclave debated long into the night, their discussions more urgent as intelligence reports indicated the Novari incursion might have been just the first wave of a larger invasion force. The Concordiate suddenly found itself potentially facing an enemy that their conventional tactics had never successfully contained, while simultaneously reevaluating their approach to humanity. Meanwhile, on the human diplomatic vessel orbiting the Concordiate homeworld, Ambassador Okafor received a priority transmission from Earth Command. "Novari vessels have been detected approaching multiple Concordiate systems." The message read, "Intelligence suggests a coordinated large-scale invasion. Earth Defense Council authorizes full deployment of the fleet in defense of Concordiate space, pending diplomatic approval." Okafor's response was immediate. "Request authorization to present full defensive capabilities and strategic options to the Concordiate Conclave. The time for half measures is over." As the transmission ended, Okafor gazed out at the glittering Concordiate capital world below. "They laughed at us," he murmured to his aide. "Let's see if they're still laughing when they need us." The impossible solution. The Grand Conclave chamber had never been so crowded. Representatives from every Concordiate world packed the tiered seating, their attention fixed on the holographic display dominating the center of the room. The projection showed wave after wave of Novari warships emerging from hyperspace at strategic points throughout Concordiate territory. "This is no raid," High Commander Vrel stated grimly. "This is full-scale invasion." "How did they amass such a force without detection?" demanded Councillor Mevari. "Unknown, but our analysts believe they've been building this fleet in secret for centuries," hiding it within the radiation fields of their home galaxy's core. Vrel replied. Our long-range sensors cannot penetrate those regions effectively. Zirax turned to the human delegation, who had been summoned to the emergency session. Ambassador Okafor stood calmly beside Admiral Alina Kurova, the newly arrived commander of Earth's defense forces. Your ships performed adequately against a small Novari force, Zirax acknowledged reluctantly. But this is beyond your capabilities. We called you here as a courtesy before we implement full military protocols. Admiral Kurova stepped forward. She was a compact woman with close-cropped gray hair and eyes that reflected decades of combat experience. With respect, Counselor, your military protocols have proven ineffective against Novari technology for centuries. We're offering an alternative approach. And what might that be? Vrel asked skeptically. Instead of answering directly, Kurova activated her own holographic projector. A new image appeared alongside the invasion map, a complex tactical display showing Concordiate space from a perspective the Council had never seen before. We've been analyzing Novari movement patterns since our engagement, Kurova explained. They're not just invading, they're herding. Herding? Mebari repeated, confused. Driving your defensive fleets into specific configurations, Kurova clarified. Look here and here. She highlighted several sectors where Concordiate forces were being systematically pushed into apparent bottlenecks. They're creating a trap, funneling your ships into isolation zones where they can be eliminated without reinforcement. The Concordiate military commanders studied the projection with growing alarm. The pattern was clear once highlighted, but their strategic systems hadn't detected it. How did you see this when our strategic AIs did not? Vrel demanded. Admiral Kurova smiled slightly. Your AIs are programmed to recognize patterns based on historical encounters and established tactical doctrines. Humans excel at identifying patterns that don't match expectations. We call it intuition, seeing what isn't there rather than only what is. Even if you're correct, Zirax interjected, identifying the strategy doesn't solve our immediate crisis. The Novari outnumber our combined fleets by a factor of 3. Numbers aren't everything, Kurova replied confidently. We request temporary command authority over 3 of your defense sectors to implement a counter-strategy. The chamber erupted in protests. Giving control of Concordiate forces to humans was unprecedented, and to many, unthinkable. Silence, Zirax commanded. When order was restored, he addressed the Admiral directly. You ask for extraordinary authority based on unproven theories. We ask for the opportunity to save lives. Okafor countered. Both yours and ours. The Novari won't stop with the Concordiate. Earth will be next. After heated debate, a compromise was reached. The humans would be granted tactical control over a single defense sector, one already considered lost to the Novari advance. If their strategy proved effective, further integration would be considered. Admiral Kurova wasted no time. Within hours, she had established a joint command center aboard her flagship, the EDF Resilience. The Concordiate officers assigned to her command approached their duties with thinly veiled skepticism, but Kurova ignored their attitude, focusing instead on implementing what she called Operation Labyrinth. The Novari expect us to defend in traditional formations, she explained to her mixed staff. Instead, we'll create a tactical void, an apparent weakness that draws them in, then collapses around them. Our ships cannot match Novari maneuverability, objected Fleet Commander Tyrax, the senior Concordiate officer. Creating such a formation would leave us vulnerable to flanking attacks. That's where these come in, Kurova replied, revealing schematics for small devices the humans called quantum anchors. Once deployed, they create localized disruptions in space-time that will limit Novari maneuverability without affecting our own ships. How is that possible? Tyrax demanded. Spatial disruption affects all matter equally. Dr. Reyes, who had joined the Admiral's staff, answered, not when calibrated to specific quantum frequencies. The Novari drives operate on a different harmonic pattern than either human or Concordiat systems. We can target them specifically. The skepticism remained, but with no better options available, the Joint Force implemented Kurova's strategy. Quantum anchors were deployed throughout the sector, invisible to Novari sensors, but forming an intricate web of spatial distortions. Meanwhile, Concordiat ships arranged themselves in what appeared to be a disorganized retreat, leaving apparent gaps in their defensive line. The Novari commander took the bait. Seeing the Concordiat forces seemingly in disarray, the invasion fleet accelerated into the sector, intent on a swift victory. What they encountered instead was a carefully orchestrated trap. As their ships entered the quantum anchor field, their maneuverability suddenly decreased dramatically. Simultaneously, the apparently retreating Concordiat ships executed a perfectly timed pincer movement, encircling the lead elements of the Novari fleet. Human vessels, which had been hiding within the electromagnetic shadows of nearby stellar bodies, emerged to target Novari command ships with precision strikes. Unlike conventional attacks, the human weapons disrupted the Novari control systems without destroying the vessels themselves. Within hours, the tide had turned. The Novari advance in the sector had not just been halted but reversed, with over 40% of their forces disabled and captured. As reports of the victory reached the Grand Conclave, the attitude toward the human delegation shifted dramatically. "Your strategy was effective," Zirax acknowledged during an emergency session. "We request similar tactical support in the remaining threatened sectors." Ambassador Okafor nodded graciously. "Admiral Kurova has already prepared comprehensive plans for each sector. However, implementing them will require full integration of our forces under joint command. The demand would have been unthinkable days earlier. Now, with Novari forces pressing in on multiple fronts, the conclave approved it with minimal debate. Over the following weeks, a remarkable transformation took place throughout Concordiat space. Human officers worked alongside species that had previously dismissed them as primitive upstarts. The unique human approach to warfare, emphasizing adaptability over rigid doctrine and intuitive leaps over incremental advances, proved devastatingly effective against the methodical Novari. But the true turning point came not on the battlefield, but in a research laboratory on the recaptured outpost Epsilon. Dr. Sophia Reyes had been studying captured Novari vessels alongside Kalat Vorn, the same Concordiat scientist who had once dismissed human propulsion theory. "Their entire technological approach is based on absolute control," Reyes observed. "Their systems require perfect harmony to function, which makes them extraordinarily efficient but inflexible." Kalat added, beginning to appreciate the human perspective. "They cannot adapt quickly to unexpected variables." "Exactly," Reyes said excitedly. "And that gives me an idea for ending this war without further bloodshed." The concept she outlined was audacious, creating what she called a cascading quantum resonance that would propagate through space, temporarily disrupting the precise harmonics that Novari technology relied upon. If successful, it would disable their entire fleet simultaneously without destroying a single ship. "It's theoretically impossible," Kalat protested, though with less conviction than he would have shown months earlier. "The energy requirements alone are substantial but manageable if we use the Concordiat's stellar tap network in conjunction with our quantum folding technology," Rice finished. "It's never been attempted because no one has had both capabilities before. Together, we can make it work." The proposal went directly to the Grand Conclave, where it met significant resistance despite the recent military successes. The stellar tap network was the foundation of Concordiat power, harnessing the energy of selected stars throughout their territory. Allowing humans access to this network represented an unprecedented level of trust. Admiral Kurova addressed the concerns directly. "We understand your hesitation. The stellar network is your civilization's greatest achievement and most critical infrastructure. But consider this: the Novari seek to control it themselves. If they succeed, all our victories thus far will mean nothing. And if your experiment fails," Meberi challenged, Then we continue fighting conventionally, Kurova replied simply, but with significantly depleted resources and diminishing advantages. This is our best chance to end the conflict decisively. After intense deliberation, the conclave approved the plan. Over the next month, human and Concordiat scientists worked tirelessly to integrate their technologies. The process revealed much about both civilizations, the Concordiat's methodical perfection complementing humanity's innovative flexibility. When the system was finally ready, representatives from throughout the Concordiat gathered to witness the attempt. Dr. Rice and Colette Vorn stood side by side at the primary control interface, a hybrid of human intuitive design and Concordiat precision engineering. "On your command, Doctor," Colette said, a gesture of respect that would have been unimaginable months earlier. Rice nodded, then activated the system. Energy began flowing from dozens of stellar taps, channeled through human quantum folding matrices. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, throughout Concordiat space, Novari vessels suddenly lost power, their perfectly calibrated systems thrown into disarray by the subtle quantum disruption propagating at faster than light speeds. The invasion fleet, once an overwhelming force, became a collection of drifting hulks. Not a single shot had been fired, not one additional life lost. In the aftermath, as Novari forces were systematically captured and their leadership brought to negotiations, the Concordiat's perception of humanity underwent a profound shift. The species they had dismissed as primitive upstarts had become saviors, offering solutions where none had seemed possible. During the formal ceremony marking the end of hostilities, High Counselor Zirax addressed the assembled dignitaries. "Throughout our long history, the Concordiat has encountered thousands of species. We have categorized, studied, and often judged them according to our understanding of civilizational development. Today, we acknowledge the limitations of that approach." He turned toward the human delegation, led now by Earth's president alongside Ambassador Okafor and Admiral Kurova. "Humanity has taught us that true advancement isn't measured by the age of a civilization or the steadiness of its progress, but by its capacity to adapt, innovate, and most importantly, to see possibilities where others see only obstacles. Today, we don't merely welcome humans to the galactic community. We acknowledge them as teachers from whom we have much to learn." As the ceremony concluded, Celeris Vex approached Dr. Rice. "I must ask, did you know how effective your solution would be? The calculations were so complex, the variables so numerous." Rice smiled. "In truth, we were reasonably confident, but not certain. That's another human trait your reports probably missed. We're willing to take calculated risks when the potential benefits outweigh the dangers." "A dangerous approach," Celeris observed. "But an effective one," Rice countered. "Sometimes the greatest discoveries lie just beyond the boundaries of what we believe possible." Celeris nodded thoughtfully. "I'm revising my classification of humanity in the Concordiat database. The new category might interest you." "Oh." Rice raised an eyebrow curiously. "Category 0, Celeris replied. "Previously theoretical. It translates roughly as, approach with respect and openness. Do not presume to understand their limitations, for they likely do not accept them themselves." Rice laughed. "That might be the most accurate description of humanity I've ever heard." As news of the victory spread throughout the galaxy, other civilizations began reaching out to establish relations with Earth directly rather than through Concordiat intermediaries. The species that had once been dismissed, underestimated, and nearly overlooked had become a central player in galactic affairs. They had laughed at humanity, assuming that internal conflict and unconventional development marked them as primitive. Now, the name of Earth was spoken with a mixture of respect and wonder throughout the stars. The species that couldn't be categorized had found its place in the cosmos, not by conforming to expectations, but by defying them entirely.